Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
And here we go on this Thursday. Glad you're with us on the Sports IQ. In case you're just joining us, by the way, we come on every day, Monday through Friday. It's our purpose here is great sports conversation with some great guests in the know. Coming up on the 1 year mark since we started this daily project, Monday through Friday. This was just a once a week thing. And we appreciate all your comments that we've gotten. Some more great conversation today, getting ready for the weekend. Big matchup Friday night, tomorrow night in prime time. Number 3 Michigan at 10th ranked Illinois. The Wolverines undefeated in road games this year. So they'll put that on the line, a win, and they get the Big Ten championship outright for Michigan, a win for Illinois, and they erase the bad taste of that UCLA game last weekend. So Deon Thomas is joining us. He's the Illinois color man on Illini radio broadcast. He will be joining us. And also, we're now in NFL offseason, getting ready for the free agency window to open here, really just over a week away. We're pretty close to it. Mark Cannizzaro, the New York Post, is joining us to talk about the New York Giants and some other stories here around the NFL. So we'll be looking forward to talking to him. All of that's coming up here in a moment. Let's get some headlines right now before we get started. College basketball. You know, it was just about 3 weeks ago on the 6th of February that the St. John's took down UConn, an impressive 81-72 win. It was part of a 13-game win streak the Storm took into last night's rematch with UConn in Stores, and the Huskies decided to get some revenge in a big way. Terrace Reed Jr. had 20 points, 11 boards, 6 blocks. Number 6 Huskies held off 15th-ranked St. John's. 20% shooting in this, 72-40. What a blowout to put the end to the Storm's win streak and show the world once again the Huskies are a threat this season. This kind of performance is why that so many pundits have them as that 4th number 1 seed right now. Coming up in the NCAA tournament next month. But by the way, if you are already thinking about brackets, and most of us are, and you're sleeping on Florida, you need to wake up. The Gators' early struggles as they played a tough non-conference schedule, they're all in the rearview mirror right now. Alex Condon had 23 points, Boogie Flan 22. 7th-ranked Gators beat down Texas 84-71 to get their 8th straight win. Florida, they're now 22-6 overall, 13-2 in SEC play, and they've won 7 straight conference road games. The Gators outscoring their last 8 opponents during this win streak by an average of 20.5 points per game, really rounding into form as they seek to defend their national title. Let's stay in the SEC. Meanwhile, Billy Richmond III with 23 points, number 20 Arkansas, taking advantage of mistakes by Texas A&M to beat the Aggies 99-84. Arkansas, second in the SEC with an 11-4 conference mark. The Hogs get their chance at the Gators Saturday night in Gainesville. Another great showdown there this weekend. Other top 25 winners, including Vandy, Nebraska, Gonzaga, and Alabama. In the pro ranks last night, a potential NBA Finals preview in Detroit. Jalen Duren, 29 points, 15 rebounds. Cade Cunningham rebounded from his poor shooting night one game earlier. 29 points, 13 assists. The Pistons beating the shorthanded Oklahoma City Thunder 124-116 in a matchup of conference leaders. You know, the Thunder began the game without 5 other 6 leading scorers. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet Holmgren, A.J. Mitchell, and Jalen Williams all out with injury. The only one of the top 6 to start was Isaiah Joe, and he left at halftime because of a bruised hip. So the defending champs, the walking wounded right now, we'll talk later more about them and their prospects now heading into March and getting into April and looking to the playoffs. By the way, the Thunder in the West may want to watch out for the pesky Spurs. They just keep winning. Devin Vassell with 21 points. De'Aaron Fox at 20. The Spurs overcoming Victor Wembanyama's tough night to beat Toronto 110-107, and they've now won a season-best 10 in a row. Wembanyama, 12 points on 3 of 12 shooting, including just 1 of 6 from three-point range. College football, meanwhile, remains in the news for all the wrong reasons these days. Since the end of the playoff, some 35 lawsuits, just in about 6 weeks here, have been filed involving one way, shape, or form college football. And the latest one coming yesterday. Cincinnati suing former quarterback Brendan Sorsby in federal court, alleging that he breached his NIL contract with the Bearcats even when he refused to pay a $1 million exit fee after he transferred to Texas Tech. Now, the lawsuit seeks $1 million in liquidated damages, which the school said Sorsby was contractually obligated to pay within 30 days of transferring. In the complaint, Cincinnati's attorneys say the quarterback's representative, quote, advised that Sorsby refuses to pay the university anything, end quote. So there you go. Watch this space. Again, another space. Meanwhile, Chicago Bears exploring parting ways with one of their defensive starters, a franchise granting permission to linebacker Tremaine Edmunds to seek a trade. This, according to the Chicago Tribune. Edmunds, who turns 28 in May, enters the final year of a 4-year, $72 million contract he signed with Chicago back in 2023. He's due $15 million in cash, with a 17.4 cap hit in 2026. That's according to Sportrack. Whether the Bears trade or cut Edmunds, they stand to save about $15 million parting ways with him. And despite missing 4 games with a groin injury, Edmunds led the Bears in 2025 with 112 tackles to go with 9 passes defended, 4 interceptions, and 1 sack. Friday night, it is 10th ranked Illinois taking on number 3 Michigan. 2 teams at the top. It's a must win for Illinois if they want to stay in the hunt for the Big Ten championship. They're kind of running out of options here, but it's still been a great year for Illinois. And joining us once again on the show, we appreciate. He's the color commentator for Illinois basketball. Is Deon Thomas. Deon, first, good to see you as always. First time we've talked during the new year, so a belated Happy New Year. Want to first talk about that game Saturday night and what happened in the final 30 minutes. I check in, it's 33-10. Illinois is cruising, and then here's a very determined UCLA team that came back and won just in a crazy sequence there in overtime.
First, thanks again, always, Larry, for having me. I love being on with you. I love what you do. I appreciate what you do. And Happy New Year to you as well. What happened? A complete fall apart is what it is. You had one team that knew and was fighting for their tournament life, fighting for their, fighting, to be quite honest, possibly for their coach's job, because there was a lot of conversation going around about the behavior of Nick Cronin, and that team wanted it more. That was the, quintessential, the best team lost, because Illinois is by far a superior team at every position on the floor. But when you have someone that wants it more than you do, or think they deserve it, or have something that they're fighting for more so, and I think that's the issue that Illinois ran into. I don't think there was anything, not to take anything away from UCLA, but I didn't think they did anything special. I think it was another one of those instances, and we've had a few of them this year, where Illinois has taken their foot off the gas and the other team is still fighting, scratching, and clawing, and then they come out of it with a win at the end. I take a look at the Wisconsin game. I take a look at the Michigan State game. I take a look at even that first Nebraska game that they lost. If I had to go back and look at the accumulation of their 5 losses, the only team that they really lost to was UConn. UConn out-toughed them, beat them up. You had some injuries and some, key players not playing in a couple of those other losses. And then this game, you have your whole regiment of guys back, but one team wanted it more than the other.
One thing, I was doing some research before talking to you today, and Illinois now has 6 losses going into the Michigan game. And there's one thread that shocked me that this was, I'm like, what is it about these 6 games? What happened? Because I think Illinois is an incredible team this year. And I do think it's outside of the team with the Elite Eight a couple of years ago, the best team. We'll see if they can match that success in the NCAA tournament, because that's obviously March is what you're geared up for. In every game, every loss, Illinois has failed to hit its season average either in 3-point shooting or in free throws. They're about 31% from 3. They're about 79% from the free throws. In each of those losses, they fail to hit one of those numbers. When they hit both of those numbers, Illinois is undefeated. And it kind of goes back to, a situation of, again, possibly it's a mental thing, it's focused, we've got this, maybe it's tired legs at the end. But does that shock you to hear those numbers?
No, actually, because Brian Barnhart, my partner on the radio, and I have talked about this. And another number you can throw in there is rebounding. When we're out rebounded, or like you said, we don't hit our marks, then, those are are going to be losses. And if you look at, and I forgot to throw the Alabama game in there, because those are all games that we should have won. Even with the poor shooting night, if we're rebounding the ball, if we're aggressive downhill, yes, coach wants to shoot a lot of threes because he feels that if you get close to 40% of those shots back, which Illinois does, then you still have a chance to win the game. But when we stop attacking the basket, which limits your free throw shooting, now you don't get to the free throw line. You're not up there early and often, then you're not going to shoot a lot more. So that goes along with what you, with your research shown. And I think that's what Illinois got away from, just to harken back to the UCLA game. That second half, when they began, they shot all 3-point shots. Mm-hmm. And then as the things got close and UCLA was right back in the game, now they wanted to get downhill. And you have to find some balance in between the two. And when Illinois is touching the paint, they're almost unstoppable. Mm-hmm. I mean, because now you have to sink in, and that opens the outside shots. I think in that game, especially in the second half, when they weren't making shots, but yet continuing to try to do the same thing. Got to be flexible, got to convert. Got to revert back to what got you the lead in the first half. And people will look at it and be like, well, they hit a lot of 3-pointers in the first half, which they did. But look at how they got the 3-point shots, and that's the thing. This guy's getting downhill, picking it out to the corner, then you have the ball swinging around 3-4 hockey passes before there's a shot taken up. Second half, it wasn't that way.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing everyone has talked about, even in the USC game and the Indiana game on CBS before that the nation saw, was a lot of passing, a lot of sharing, working for those open shots. This game Saturday night, with all the poor shooting in the second half from three, gave me vibes of the Duke game last year, where Illinois was only 2 of 26, and meanwhile they were 60% from two, but they were passing up open layups to kick out for a missed three. And I think that's, I took that to being a freshman point guard who's now in the NBA. But I guess at some point, does this team, to your point, learn about that? And you're the tallest team in the nation. You've got to take advantage of that, even when the threes are falling.
Well, the tallest team in the nation, but your two tallest players, the twin brothers, are two of your best 3-point shooters. I know it may not look that way percentage-wise, but they're two of your best 3-point shooters. Yeah. Illinois' offense, and I go back and forth with fans and people all the time, is a pick your poison kind of offense. And meaning they move the ball, when they're moving the ball really well, you have your big screening and rolling to the basket, creating space, then they're almost unstoppable. Mm-hmm. But when they come up and they take those quick 3-point shots, and whether they're in transition or they're off the first pick and roll, then that's when those percentages start to fall. And I think that's one of the things that hurt them, as we talked about on Saturday against UCLA. But when they're moving the basketball, when most of their made baskets come off of assists, this team is awesome. If you take a look at the USC game, now granted, USC was missing a couple of their key players, but to be quite honest, the way that ball was popping around the horn and inside and outside, and you had Kylan with one of the best dunks of the year off of the rebound. When you have things working as well oiled as it did on that Wednesday night, they can't be stopped. This is the number one offensive team in the country in efficiency when the ball is moving.
Yeah,
it's a lot different, like you said, when that ball's not moving, when it gets stagnant. And if you go back and look at their losses, it was a lot of that same thing that took place.
Yeah, talking with Deon Thomas here. Again, he's the color commentator for Illinois basketball. So Friday night, top 10 matchup. I read somewhere maybe the first they're in Champaign in the Brad Underwood era. This is a Michigan team that many believe is the best in the country. I subscribe to that. I think they're the team to beat come March. I'm sure there's a message there at practice each week that if Brad Underwood didn't have his team's attention, he certainly has it now, coming off this loss with the biggest game of the year coming up on Friday.
Well, no doubt. And I agree, as much as it pains me, Michigan is the best team in the country right now. In a neutral site and lost to Duke. But if they played 10 times, I'm taking Michigan 7 out of the 10 times.
Sure. Yeah.
I think their size, their guard play, and I can't remember the young fella's name, the fifth-year senior on their team who was absolutely killing. But that's just a what.
Lindenberg?
Yes, Lindenberg. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a complete team. I mean, they're one of the top offensive teams in the country, but they're also one of the top defensive teams in the country. He's done a really good job of pulling and putting this team together. But if there was a team that could beat them, that could match their size, that could match their athleticism and their length, it's this Illinois team. Now, will that happen? I don't know. It's yet to be seen, because when we put together a full 40 minutes, there's next to no one, I believe, that can stick at the team offensively. Defensively, I think they're top 30, which is still really good.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be that and be that consistently. And, that as I mentioned, the UCLA game, they were not that. If you go back and you look at the defense in the USC game, I even told one of the coaches, that was the best defense I've seen in about 20 years.
Wow.
Because they gave up nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
They gave no open looks. Even when USC did a good job of hitting the paint and spraying the ball out, you had 2-3 second helps. You didn't have that in the UCLA game. Was it tire legs? I don't know. But if they want to win, they're going to have to play a complete game against this Michigan team, because they don't stop. And they play you for 40-plus minutes if necessary, and Illinois is going to have to be able to match that. And then, just another caveat to that, you got Morez Johnson coming back, who I was hoping would have stayed with Illinois this year, but, he chose and his family chose to go on. I'm so happy for that young man that he's having the successes that he is having at Michigan. But you can be for sure he's going to come back and he's going to want to smush it in your face. And if he's doing that, everybody else on that Michigan team is going to want to do it as well. So they're going to have to come in. They're going to have to match, if not surpass, that Michigan energy, and be the more physical team on the court as well. So they got the you got to strap up the bootstraps, man. They got to tie them jumpers up real tight.
Yeah.
Get ready to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, match that energy. It's going to be nuts. I saw online somewhere where even over the weekend, tickets in the lower bowl there in the arena were going for as much as $1,100. I mean, it is a big time ticket. Fox national game. Boy, the scheduling has been fantastic in terms of getting these games on national TV there in the Big Ten. I want to look ahead to March right now. I've got you in the final couple of minutes. This is a team right now that feels like is built for March. I don't recall a time when I've seen every single pundit, no matter which website, what outlet you go to, putting Illinois among their 6-8 teams that could win a national title. I mean, I don't know if we saw a little bit of that a couple of years ago with the Terrence Shannon team and Marcus Domask.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've seen that maybe since 05. In your mind, how does this team shape up when it comes down to March and being the aggressor and making a deep run in the tournament?
I would have to agree with the so-called experts. And not trying to offend anyone, but no one's an expert at everything. But I would have to agree with them. This is a team that has been very well constructed to compete and compete well in March. You're the tallest team in the country. You're one of the longest. You're one of the oldest. You have a star, a superstar in Peyton Wagler. You have someone that I believe is one of the best leaders I've seen of young men on the floor day in and day out. He's your pit bull out there in Kylan Boswell. And then you have a lot of other really, really good pieces. And I also want to point out two of the best role players, I feel, in the country, in Jake Davis and Ben Hummerhouse. So, yes, this team is built. They're built well. They're built to go deep. I think they match up with anyone. If they're hoisting a trophy on Monday, I would not be shocked. Mm-hmm. But again, this is a team that has to play and stay focused for 40-plus minutes. We haven't done that in every game this year. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what has all of the pundits really excited about what this team could be. I agree with you. I don't think we've had this level of firepower, experience, know-how, skill since, and I think this team even surpasses that 2005 team in some of those categories. But what that 2005 team had was a kid named D. Brown that would not allow anyone on the team to let down. I mean, that's not to take anything away from Darren or Luther Head or anyone else that was on that team. That kid's fire permeated throughout the team. And that's why you knew they were going to be in the championship. This team has the potential to be in the championship. They have to get some of that dog. They have to bring in, and harness some of that Kylan Boswell energy if they want to be playing on Monday. And yes, they have the potential to be there, but you got to bring it. Because now you coming to a point where it's one and you go home.
Yeah.
So, you can't be saving energy for whoever your next opponent is because you might not have one.
Yeah. No, great point. I remember I was there behind the North Carolina bench back in 2005 in St. Louis, and D. Brown was the one that engineered that second half comeback. I mean, Carolina was heading for an easy win, and they came back, tied it up late, and then, of course, the shot by Rashad McCants that missed, and Marvin Williams puts it in. That's another topic. Hey, last question for you. You mentioned Keaton Walker. We haven't gotten to him yet. Should be freshman of the year. It feels like in the Big Ten. Should he be getting All-American consideration as well?
No doubt freshman of the year in Big Ten. I mean, he's been freshman of the week and freshman of the month more than anyone in the Big Ten. Should he get All-American nods? Oh, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't recall if they're doing first, second, or third teams nowadays. I know they used to back in the day.
Yeah.
But he should definitely be. I mean, his story is like no other story. I mean, you had 300 plus Division I schools that missed out on this kid at 261, I think was the lowest I saw him rank. Yeah. I mean, he's in Kansas. He's right in your backyard, 30 minutes away from your campus, and no one knew about him. Yeah. So when this kid stepped on campus, I remember talking to Tyler Underwood, and Tyler was like, Deon, wait till you see him. And then I had one of my buddies that's a scout in the NBA was like, Deon, let me know what you think when you see him. I saw that kid for 5 minutes, Larry, in practice, and I was like, oh. Yeah. I was like, okay, this kid's special.
Yeah.
So to see what he has become throughout this year, what he has done throughout the year, how he has carried this team when we were missing two of our main calls in Kylan Boswell and Andre Sarakovich, to watch him carry this team, and anybody that watched that game against Purdue, I don't know how you keep him off the list because no one goes into Mackey Arena and do what he did. Yeah. And I mean, and right now I think he's on a double figure streak of 17, 18 games in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to answer that question, I mean, if they don't put this kid on some kind of All-American list, then we all need to stop listening to these so-called experts because they're missing the boat.
Yeah, and Illinois is on national TV, Fox or CBS, 5 straight weekends here, it looks like, looking that up. 18 points per game, 40+% from three-point range, and almost a 3-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. I don't know, in the words of Maximus, are you not entertained? Deon, man, great to talk with you, man. Listen, enjoy this ride. It's going to be a fun month ahead, and hopefully we can catch up soon.
All right, Larry. Sounds good, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, Deon Thomas, once again, ILL, INI, that's right. Deon Thomas joining us once again. Color man for Illinois basketball is the Illini versus Michigan Friday night. More to come after this.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back there. Glad that Deon could join us as he was in a bad spot there. We didn't want to stop the interview, but a couple of spots there he kind of went out. But great to have him on there and get some good insights again on this Michigan Illinois team. Michigan is just a juggernaut, and they'll be looking to come back in a vengeance. They did get the win Tuesday night at home against Minnesota, and now again hitting the road, their toughest road game to date in the Big Ten. Some baseball news for you now. Three-time Cy Young Award winner Max Scherzer agreeing to return to Toronto, according to ESPN. It's a one-year deal for $3 million. Bringing Scherzer back becomes a bigger need for the Blue Jays, with right-hander Bowden Francis undergoing season-ending Tommy John surgery earlier this month, and then Shane Bieber delayed with a bout of some forearm fatigue. Scherzer, 41 years old. The guy just keeps going, and he'll join newcomers Cody Ponce and Dylan Cease in the rotation. The Blue Jays could choose to ramp up very slowly and then prompting him to join the rotation in season. In the last two regular seasons, Big Max has only pitched a total of 128 innings for Texas and then Toronto. So how much the Jays will get from him remains to be seen, hence the low salary of, quote-unquote, air quotes here, only $3 million. But personally, big fan of Max Scherzer. I hope he pitches till he's 50. Stay in the game. CC Sabathia, inducted into the Hall of Fame as a Yankee last summer. Now he'll be immortalized in Monument Park. On Wednesday, the New York Yankees announcing that his number 52 will be retired on September 26th. He'll be the 24th player to have his number retired by the franchise. Little women's college basketball for you. The latest edition of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry on Wednesday night was an instant classic, a thrilling, messy, back-and-forth contest that ended chaotically over the final 5.5 minutes of game time. Eighth-ranked Michigan surrendering a fourth-quarter lead, making a crucial mistake in the final second of regulation, and then rallied to beat 13th-ranked Ohio State in overtime, 88-86. The Wolverines led by 3 points with less than a second on the clock when Brooke Quarles Daniels, not a rookie, fouled Ohio State star guard Jelani Cambridge on a three-point shot, and the 81% free throw shooter made all three of her attempts to send the game into overtime, where, again, Michigan then rallied to get the win there. So big things happening in the Big Ten. Okay, much more to come. Quick time out right now. We'll talk NFL free agency with Mark Cannizzaro of the New York Post. That's up next.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Well, we keep talking about that March is here, and obviously for basketball fans, that's a big deal. But let's face it, it's also big for the NFL as we're about to enter the free agent period. Joining us here on the show for the first time, Mark Cannizzaro. He's a sports columnist with the New York Post. Mark, good to talk with you. We were talking in the break here about just the snow. We're ready for this stuff to stop.
Well, I'm a golfer, so the more snow we get here this late in the season, it delays golf season for me a little bit. So that's my only big issue. I love the snow. I love to ski, but there's no skiing outside my window right now, just shoveling, unfortunately.
Right, exactly. Well, thanks for taking a break to talk with us about this. Want to obviously focus on the New York Giants and the changes at the top with John Harbaugh coming in. Let's start there, kind of what that transition was like. A team that fired their coach in midseason, and then coming up and getting what arguably probably the top free agent coach out there in the game in Harbaugh.
Yeah, I mean, things could not have fallen better for the Giants in the coaching search, and as the offseason began, this was the one and only person on the, and he wasn't really in the market, when they first started looking. He was the perfect fit from the start. And, I never had a doubt it was going to happen once he was let go from Baltimore, and you spoke to people, who knew him a little bit, and as it turned out, he publicly said that as soon as he was, parted ways with Baltimore, the Giants they were the only team on his list, essentially.
Wow.
So at that point, it just came down to coming down to numbers and power structure and things like that. Essentially, the Giants had zero leverage other than to give him whatever money he wanted and whatever power he wanted. And that's essentially what he got. And I'm okay with that. It's full disclosure. And again, I mean, this is long past now, but I mean, I really still believe Brian Daboll is a good football coach, good head coach.
Mm-hmm.
But the numbers were the numbers. I mean, I think when he was fired, I think they were 2-8. It was a third straight year they started the season 2-8. You just can't do that. But I really felt like there was a good future with him and Jackson Dart, the Giants quarterback who they drafted last year. And Jackson, obviously, which we'll talk about, is the centerpiece to everything, other than Harbaugh. It's Harbaugh and it's Dart. and then
Mhm.
let's build everything around it. Let's figure out, what they have. And the Giants have still got a roster that I do not think is horrific. It's thin. They got some issues in a lot of areas.
Mhm.
And they'll begin to, and I know we're going to talk about that, but they'll begin to address that stuff. But I just think, to me, Harbaugh made the most sense because the Giants had gone the route of the hot assistant, which is the cliche after every year and after all these coaches get fired, 7, 8, 9, whatever it is. This year it was 10, I believe.
Mhm.
So they gone that route with Dayball and the number of men prior to him. Since Tom Coughlin, I mean,
Mhm.
it's been a black hole.
Mhm.
So they needed somebody with some cachet, and who's proven,
Mhm.
who was. I mean, there's no question the kind of leader that Harbaugh is. 18 years in Baltimore. His record speaks for itself. So this was the perfect fit. Now he's got to put all the pieces together. He's got a staff together now. He's just kind of completed some things there, and now it's time to get down to personnel. Obviously, the NFL Combine is this week, where there's down in Indianapolis, where they'll be poking and prodding and interviewing and psychoanalyzing everybody for the draft. But I think, I know we're going to talk free agency, but quite honestly, I think, the Giants have so little cap space right now. I think they're a little more than $5 million in space. I don't know how much they can really do in terms of, big fishing, so to speak, in the offseason with the free agents. And I'm also not sure, again, we could talk about it a little bit in a minute, but I'm not sure about the free agents that are available at the positions of need for them. I'm not so sure. There's some veteran guys that maybe I think the Giants are going to build young.
Mhm.
They've already started to do that, obviously. Malik Neighbors, who was injured last year, their receiver, the number one pick the previous year. Harbaugh can't wait to get Malik Neighbors and Jackson Dart, and that offense going. They had a very promising, and Scatabo, obviously, who they drafted, and who was injured for a lot of the year this year too. So um, there are needs, but this to me should not be a 4-13 football team. It just spiraled, and they've had major quarterback issues, obviously, the last several years. They found somebody in Dart. Listen, Dart still has to prove it, but the body of work I saw when he was healthy, it was pretty spectacular. I thought it was extremely promising.
Yeah, I thought he came through, and you have a first round pick. There's always that, we put that a bullseye on them. That okay, you're a first round
Mhm.
pick, you got to come right out, and they don't always do that. But it seemed to me, as an observer on the outside, you're obviously much closer. That he picked things up, did some things that's very promising now for year two, and the stability of having. Hopefully the same head coach and the same OC and the same staff around him. Um, Talk about in terms of what you expect out of him to grow with Harbaugh here in the offseason once they do get together, get past the free agent period, like you said, maybe thin, the draft, getting into OTAs in May, camp in summer. How could he grow here these next 6 months before opening day?
Well, I think he matured every day that he was there last year. One of the things that became a big buzz topic was his aggressiveness with his legs
Mhm.
and willingness to take hits. And that has been something, quite frankly, I almost think it's become overblown because, every good running, quarterback, Josh Allen, for example, is going to take some hits. But, I mean, that's part of those players' superpower. And that's part of Jackson Dart's superpower. You don't want to stifle that. But he has to be a lot more careful and cognizant when he is running, when to slide, when to run out of bounds. There were a few examples last year where he tried to gain an extra, yard or two or three by blasting into a linebacker near the sideline when he could have just ducked out.
Mhm.
And I think that's been drilled into his head. I think we'll see a much smarter Jackson Dart next year when it comes to that. Um, Unfortunately, we didn't really get a chance to see the chemistry with Neighbors because Neighbors was hurt for so much of the season. I'm sure I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of work done that way in the offseason. I don't know what Jackson's plans are offseason wise. I know a lot of quarterbacks. I covered the Jets for years, and Mark Sanchez was very good about getting his skill position guys together at a location. I mean, Mark would pay for everything. He'd put everybody up. They'd play golf. They'd make it a fun week, 4 or 5 days or whatever it is. And, he would do it out in Mission Viejo. And it just that builds chemistry, it builds familiarity, it builds, camaraderie. So whether Jack's going to do that or not, I don't know. Obviously, last year was a whirlwind for him, being drafted and just kind of, trying to get his head above water, so to speak. So I think you're going to just see a more mature guy who is, you know, and quite frankly, when I say that, I don't think he was immature last year. I really, really liked the way he handled himself in front of the media, in public. You can kind of tell. There's always tell signs when you see a guy, he's blaming somebody else or whatever. Jackson, always takes it on himself, and that to me is the first spot I see when I'm looking for a mature young player. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think you'll see a lot of that now. The question is, if we could transition into the Giants' needs, he needs more at the wide receiver position. Neighbors obviously was hurt all last year. Wan'Dale Robinson had a wonderful year last year. He was kind of typecast as a nickel receiver, a guy that would just kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit. We had a lot of receptions for not a lot of yards. This year he was targeted, I think, 140 times because that was out of necessity because they just didn't have anybody. He had a fantastic year this year. The question is, are the Giants going to want to pay the freight? He's a free agent. The numbers right now, I think I just read something on Sport Track a little earlier. His numbers could come out to about $17 million a year. Now,
Wow.
the numbers, as you know, we look at, I'm sure, all the sports, right? And we're like, how is this? How is a guy worth that much? So I don't want to take away from anybody on that kind of thing, but do I look at Wan'Dale Robinson as a $17 million a year receiver? I do not. But the problem is the free agent market is either going to be expensive. George Pickens is probably the top guy out there. He's going to cost a hell of a lot more than 17 million. And then you got some of these, Deebo Samuel's out there. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. Mike Evans has had, he's getting older. He's had some health issues. Possibly this kid Alec Pierce from Indy. He's a pretty dynamic deep threat guy. Not too far away from you where you are down there. Jawan Jennings from the Niners, another guy who's been a pretty productive player. But I think some of those guys are going to cost, I think, more money than the Giants are going to be able to afford to spend.
Mhm.
And some of them I just think are on the other side of their, on the back nine, if you will, of their careers, and are probably looking for that last payday and probably not worth it. So they probably are going to have to go, and I'm saying almost certain. I feel strongly that they'll probably go that way in the draft. You got Carnell Tate from Ohio State, who's really good. Obviously, the Giants are, they got a very, very high pick.
Mhm.
Jordan Tyson from ASU is another young guy who, those are a couple guys that have been mentioned. But I think that's kind of the way the Giants would go at receiver. But they need to get a true number two. I love Darius Slayton, who's, he's a veteran on the group. He
Mhm.
drops the ball too much. Whether they keep him or not on, I don't know. I hope they do. But the problem with Darius, he doesn't play. He's a quote unquote older guy. He's not that old, but he's the oldest guy in the group, and he doesn't play special teams. So that's an issue too. So, but yeah, I think number one target in whether it's free agency or whether it's the draft would be getting another top receiver for Dart.
For Dart to come in there. I'm curious as we're going through this, you mentioned again in terms of how they just don't have a lot of room under the cap space going into the free agent period. Is there a move you could see them making? Is there someone they might consider cutting to free up some money to be active in the market?
Yeah, they will do certainly some salary cap and roster maneuvering. I mean, Russell Wilson is not going to be on the team next year.
Right.
That's a given. I think you're going to see, and I hope they do keep, uh, you know, I hope they keep Jameis Winston, selfishly speaking, because I just love, the back and forth with him because he's a joy to be around. But he proved to be a pretty damn good backup quarterback for them last year when they needed him. So I see him staying. So that they'll clear some cap space with a high price guy like Russell Wilson, who's absolutely not going to be. And Russell Wilson still thinks he can play and wants to start. So that's not happening with the Giants, obviously. I think he was a good teammate for the Giants last year for Dart. He was a good mentor, but he's made it pretty clear that he still thinks he can play and wants to play.
Mm.
But yeah, they'll that this happens all the time. They'll free some money up. But
Mm.
again, it comes down to, do you want to spend that kind of money on a George Pickens, or do you want to take a chance on a guy like a Deebo Samuel, who's
Mhm.
had issues staying on the field? Um, I see them going the draft route there. I do.
Yeah. Do you think, as we kind of, we got a couple minutes left here. Obviously, John Harbaugh has had great success. I still think it was unfair what happened to him in Baltimore, although again, sometimes it's just time for a new voice. They just had so many injuries. I think at one point they had half of their starting lineups were out with injuries. So the 1-4, 1-5 start still rebounded to be in the hunt at the end. How long do you think it takes him to make this Giants team a contender? Could they do that this year? More of a 2027? What's kind of in your crystal ball do you think could take him to kind of make this team a contender and get them back to where they're thinking championships?
I mean, these are all crapshoot predictions as always,
Sure.
but
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
Oh yeah.
it's not going to stun me in any way to see the Giants winning 9 games this year or something like that and being at least in the mix for a wild card. If Dart stays, I mean, well, there's always ifs. I mean, if they get somebody, we just spoke about getting another receiver, and Neighbors stays healthy and Dart stays healthy,
Mhm.
offensively. I mean, with the Giants, defensive front is their biggest strength. I mean, I personally want to see Brian Burns win. Okay. Brian
Mhm.
Burns has been a dynamic player his entire career, and he's been cursed being on bad teams. Carolina, and then he goes to the Giants, thinks, things are going to happen there, and it's gotten worse. I mean, this is a guy who had 16 sacks last year. He's a stand-up guy. They need more from Thibodeau. Dexter Lawrence did not have a good year last year. They need the guys who, they need a guy like a Dexter Lawrence to have, the kind of year that got him his contract, if you will, right? Because he got paid last year.
Mhm.
They need that, combined with Burns and all that kind of stuff that, they obviously need help in the secondary, which I'm sure they'll address. But again, if you keep the quarterback healthy and he's got people to throw to, and Scatterbo, is obviously proven pretty dynamic player for them.
Mhm.
I don't see any reason why they can't potentially win 9 or 10 games. Now, I mean, that seems a bit pie in the sky, but if in the NFL nowadays, you see turnarounds constantly with these, with teams, and um, listen, Harbaugh alone to me should be worth a couple 3 games in the win
Right.
column.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to Mike Kafka, who was their interim, but I mean, Mike, he was thrust into the job. It's the same thing happened to the Jets a year before when they fired Robert Saleh when he should have been fired at 2 and 3. I think that Jets were when they fired him.
Mhm.
And then they throw their defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich into the fray, and it's a what show, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I think that Harbaugh alone should mean 2 to 3 more wins for the Giants, right? And then if you keep the quarterback healthy and the top skill position players and the
Mhm.
defense plays a bit better. I thought the Giants offensive line last year was halfway decent. They were pretty good, veterans, I like Illuminor. He's a free agent, the right tackle, whether they're going to keep him or not. I hope they do.
Mhm.
But obviously Andrew Thomas is the centerpiece for them, which is their left tackle, and he's had some injury issues too. But yeah, I in terms of competing for a championship, I think it's going to take a couple years, I would think. But
Yeah.
I think all the Giant fan wants right now is to be relevant in December, and quite frankly, that's what Giants owner John Mara has always asked for, and that's what he's been asking for. We want to be relevant in December, and the Giants haven't been in too long.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're exactly right. It is, and I think it'll. For me, I think it's one. There are those programs and those franchises that make their leagues and their sport better when they are part of the mix, and the Giants are one of those. It means something different when you look at them in December and the Giants are there with 10 wins and they're jockeying for playoff position, kind of thing. So
Yeah,
I
I
totally,
totally agree. Totally
yeah,
agree with that.
yeah.
And it's
Hey,
been, it's almost shocking that it's been as long as it's been
yeah,
since they've been in contention. I mean, obviously, Dayball's first year, they went to the playoffs, had a, nice run. I think it went 9-6-1, and they won a playoff game in Minnesota, and it just went south from there. But that was, not to get into go down a rabbit hole, but I mean, that was probably the worst thing could have happened to Dayball was having that good year to start because Daniel Jones, then their quarterback, who we already knew wasn't that good, although he played well in Indy, you got to give him credit until he got hurt, but it wasn't working with the Giants. But then he has a good year. He has a really good playoff game against Minneapolis, and then they got to give him this money, and then they're stuck with him, and he gets hurt again the next year, and things spiral again at the quarterback. I mean, there's so many, but it's just and even that year, that was a blip on the screen. So I mean, it's really been quite a few years, really since Coughlin, really, that they've been consistently relevant and a playoff type team. And I have little question in my mind that Harbaugh is going to bring them there.
Yeah, yeah. I think we all felt when that happened right away. We're like, okay, that just makes sense. That he would go there. They've got the money, make this happen. Like you said, you've tried the assistant thing for so long that hasn't worked. Back to your first thing you said, let's get to the guy who has the ring and has already done this for so many years. Listen, great to talk with you. Appreciate you taking a few minutes with us. And if you don't mind, we'll check in again a little bit down the line, getting closer to the draft to kind of talk a little more Giants football with you.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks, brother. Appreciate it so much. Mark Cannizzaro joining us once again. He is the sports columnist for New York Post and talking about the New York Giants. Some changes coming up here, looking into the draft and looking, again, maybe some things in free agency. Like he said, not much there for them, he doesn't think, but it's always fun. The offseason NFL, sometimes as entertaining as the actual games themselves. It is never a dull moment. Okay, more to come here on the Sports IQ.
Welcome back. Producer Tony is now on the mic, and great to talk with Mark there about the Giants. But let's talk a little NBA. I want to get your thoughts. We haven't really, because of college basketball, we've been really stuck on that game. But the NBA right now sizing up to be an interesting spring with the Oklahoma City Thunder. After that hot start, they've really been not average, but they haven't been invincible in these last couple of months.
No, I was doing some research, Larry, just looking up their record and seeing what's been going on. Now, obviously, they've had some injuries, but since that start, remember, they started 24-1.
Yeah.
And everybody wondering, are they going to break the Golden State record? Can they get to 70-plus wins, this, that, and the other thing? Well, since that time, they're 21-14. Again, it's not horrible, but it's not world record pace either. They've slowed considerably, and it just shows you can construct the roster the best you can because, look, let's give the Thunder GM credit, their front office. They've done a great job with this roster. Just awesome.
Yeah.
Right. But injuries can sidetrack anybody. And right now, everybody seems to be banged up on their roster. Everybody's dealing with some sort of injury, some sort of nagging this, that, the other thing, all the way down from SGA, right down to Hartenstein, right down to Williams. Everybody's dealing with something going on in their body. And as well as I do, you get to the NBA playoffs, you better be healthy because they become a grind playing the same team night after night, in shortened and having to travel cross country, all of those things gets a little tiring. You can't afford to be hurt going into the playoffs.
Yeah. In fact, with that, two things as you look at the standings right now, after last night's action, Detroit now has the best record in the NBA. Not Oklahoma City. That's the first time that's happened this year, right? The Pistons have now caught them. And then on top of that, the Spurs now just 2 games behind them in the Western Conference standings. So to your point, let's say they do get healthy, and when they're healthy, they're as good as anybody. You may not have home court edge in a Western Conference Finals. That may go to San Antonio. Now you have to win on the road to advance and try to repeat your championship. And let's talk, too, about this Detroit win last night. Great litmus test for them, right? I mean, to come in and get this win against the team. Yes, they were shorthanded, no question at all. Oklahoma City, played the night before, so I mean, it's a quick turnaround. But still, it goes down as a win. You took on the defending champs and got the W.
And Cade Cunningham really has blossomed the last 2 years. Coming out, they considered his draft class not the greatest draft class. Yes, he was the number 1 pick, but it really wasn't considered the strongest draft class on record in the NBA. But he has really rounded into form the last 2 years. He's a leader. He plays defense. He can score. He passes the ball really well. He just completes all phases of the game. And again, that's another organization. Yeah, they kind of went into tank mode, which a lot of teams do, and we're having discussions about what is tanking going to be allowed here in the future of the NBA. But they went down to the depths. They were really, really bad for a couple of seasons, but now they're back. And that's probably the easiest way to go. You can't afford in any league, whether it be NFL, whether it be basketball, if you are constantly drafting in the middle of the first round and you're just hanging around the edge of the playoffs, kind of like the Packers right now in football, get to the playoffs, can't win a game, You keep drafting in that same area, not bad enough to get to the top, not good enough to be at the bottom of the first round. At some point, you've got to tear it down. And that's what these teams are realizing. The only way to get ahead is to go back and try to take 2 steps forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, 3 teams playing above 700 ball, 700 ball, the Thunder, the Pistons, and again, we talked about the Spurs, 10 wins in a row now, 42-16, and that is another franchise that they don't change in the front office. I've got to go look it up. I'm not sure. I could be wrong on this. I think R.C. Buford is still calling the shots there. And he was there back during the glory days during the heyday of winning the 5 titles under Popovich back in starting in '99 and going through the 20 teens. Another team, we talked about the ABA documentary, Soul Power. Another team that is the only pro team in town, and there is a love affair with that team and that community that supersedes everything. And year in, year out, they just find ways to win. And again, we've said before, first year without Greg Popovich on the bench in almost 30 years. And yet here they are contending for a conference title and possibly a shot at the NBA Finals.
Absolutely. And you cannot count them out for one reason only. Victor Wembanyama is a superstar. He's also a superstar with an attitude. You remember Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan had attitude when they got to the playoffs. Yeah. They were going to find a way somehow to will their teams to win. We've seen it from Wembanyama in the Olympics. We've seen it even at All-Star game. He comes with it. If it's competitive, he is going to be uber competitive. And when he wants to win, he can take games over, which is what you need come playoff time. If you're sleeping on those Spurs, you might want to think again, because if they can stay healthy and Wemby can stay healthy, there's no limit to what they can do come playoff time.
Yeah, absolutely. It is going to be interesting to see what they do. By the way, R.C. Buford, I looked it up. Yes, now CEO of the team, joined the Spurs as GM in 2002. So again, he has been there. Joined in '97. He was 5 seasons as team president, became GM in 2002. So yes, 30 years there with that franchise, and he's got 5 rings to show for it, and maybe soon a 6th. Thanks to you as always. Let's make this a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow right here on the Sports IQ.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.